All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're talking about something that's pretty close to home for me. At least I think it is for a lot of people,
Yeah.
especially those of you in New York City
Yeah.
or those of you thinking about moving to New York City. Fire safety. We're diving into
Huge.
this video called New York Fires, the truth landlords and tenants need to hear.
Yes.
And we're going to really get into the nitty-gritty of this.
No.
Because that dream apartment you've got your eye on, well, it might be a fire trap.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what this video is all about is, there's this rising concern about fires in New York City.
Yeah, and they throw some pretty big numbers at you right away.
Yeah.
Like 25,000 fire emergencies
Yeah.
in a single year.
In a single year.
Like, that's a lot.
That's a lot of fires. And, one of the things they connect it to is they talk about how, there are insurance companies who are starting to not want to insure properties
Yeah.
in areas that are prone to fires.
Okay, so then my question becomes,
Yeah.
what makes a place fire prone? Like, if I'm going out apartment hunting, what am I looking for?
Yeah, well, there are a number of factors, and the video goes into this. But, for example, did you know 40% of New York City's housing stock is over 70 years old?
Wow, that's a lot of old buildings.
A lot of old buildings. So, you're thinking about, wiring that maybe hasn't been updated since the 50s or something, trying to deal with all the gadgets and appliances we have now. That's a huge fire risk.
Right.
And so a lot of insurance companies are starting to say, like, well, we're not going to insure this building.
Insure this building because the electrical is so old?
Because the electrical is so old.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I also feel like for the renter sometimes, you just don't know.
You don't know. You don't worry.
know what's going on behind the scene.
You don't. And it's tough.
Yeah.
But what's interesting, too, is the video also highlights how our everyday habits actually contribute to fires as well. I mean, did you know that 51% of residential fires are caused by cooking mishaps?
Okay, that one I feel a little bit closer to home. I mean, we've all had those late-night ramen disasters.
Exactly. And it's not just burnt noodles. It's grease fires, leaving the stove unattended, towels too close to the burner, all of those things can cause huge problems. And it just goes to show that, really fire safety awareness is key.
I think we often focus on the damage to property, but the human impact of fires is really devastating. I mean, you think about families displaced, losing their belongings, injuries, even fatalities in some of these fires.
Absolutely. And, it's not just the individual apartment either. One apartment fire in a building can displace, dozens of families. It can disrupt a whole community.
Wow.
And the video talks about this too. It doesn't shy away from the human impact, which is really important for us to keep in mind.
So what can we do? What are some actionable steps, whether you're a tenant or a landlord, to prevent these tragedies?
Well, for tenants, the video really stresses knowing and practicing fire safety guidelines. In New York City, landlords are actually required to provide those to tenants annually, but that doesn't always happen. So you should definitely proactively request those.
Okay, so like having a fire escape plan, knowing your exits, checking your smoke detectors.
Exactly.
All that.
Good stuff.
Yeah, being prepared for the worst.
Yeah.
As a tenant. Now for landlords, it's all about, regular maintenance and inspections, especially of electrical systems and heating equipment. And, it's almost like thinking of it as an investment. If you invest in making those upgrades, not only will you potentially save money on insurance premiums, but you could prevent a disaster.
It really sounds like communication and a sense of shared responsibility between landlords and tenants.
Absolutely. It's super important here.
Absolutely. And another big thing, too, is insurance, right?
Yeah.
Like getting insurance in an area that's known to be fire-prone is getting more and more difficult.
It is. Yeah, it's becoming increasingly difficult and expensive.
Yeah.
Premiums have gone up almost 30% in the last decade. Wow, that's a big jump.
That's a huge jump, yeah. And so, people are having to get really creative, working with specialized insurance brokers or really investing in those fire safety upgrades to lower their premiums. It's a really complex issue, but awareness is definitely the first step.
So for the average listener, what does all of this really mean?
I think it means that fire safety isn't just something we hear about on the news. It's something we need to be actively thinking about and discussing. It's about understanding the risks, knowing our responsibilities, and taking those preventative measures.
And it's really about remembering that we're all in this together.
Yes.
Building owners, tenants, city officials, and the amazing FDNY, who I have to say, their average response time to fires Under 5 minutes.
It's incredible.
It's really incredible.
It's super reassuring. Yeah.
But we can't let that make us complacent.
Yes.
So to all our listeners out there, here's something to think about. Do you know your building's fire escape plan? I mean, really, take a moment today, review it. Make sure everybody in your household knows what to do. In case of emergency, it could literally save lives.
Couldn't agree more. Stay safe out there.